Hi there. So what we're going to have a look at today is how to complete the square. Okay, so you will need to complete the square when you are unable to factorise a quadratic expression. Okay, so it might ask you to solve a quadratic and you won't be able to factorise, so you'll need to use another method, and one of those could be completing the square. Okay, so let's jump in and have a look at an example. So the question might read that it might ask you to solve x squared plus 6x subtract 2, and that's going to be equal to 0. Okay, so the question will ask you to solve this. So you'll look at this to start off and you'll try and factorise. And you'll notice pretty quickly that this won't factorise because we have a 2 there. We think about the factor of 2, we've got 2 and 1, and we think, right, well, 2 and 1, we can't combine that any way to get 6. So we have to use a different method. And another method that we could possibly use is completing the square. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the steps of how to complete the square. Okay, what we first do is we're going to input a single bracket. Okay, we're going to input a single bracket, and we're going to put x as our first term. Okay, we always do that no matter what. So we've got an x squared term here. Okay, so we open a bracket and we put x as our first term. And then we think, right, well, this second term here is a plus 6 at the minute. Okay, so whatever that term is, we halve it. Okay, so in this case, half of plus 6 is plus 3. Okay, and then we square this bracket, and that essentially deals with this part of the equation there. Okay, now we're going to carry our minus 2 across, or sorry, we're going to carry our minus 2 down from above, and our final step is we take this 3 here and we square it. Okay, and whatever the answer is, we take it off and we'll replace it next to the minus 2. We're going to subtract it away. So 3 squared is 9, and we're going to subtract that away, and we're going to make that equal to 0 still. Okay, so let me just talk through and run through exactly what we've done again. So first off, we thought about trying to factorise. We couldn't factorise, so we tried to complete the square. We inputted a single bracket, and because we've got an x squared term as our first term, we put x into the bracket. Now we added on 3 because we thought about the second term, which was a plus 6 at the moment, and we halved that. Okay, so that dealt with the inside the bracket, and then we squared it. So that essentially dealt with what's bracketed off in green at the top. We brought down the subtract 2, and then to finish off, we thought about that 3, that second term inside the bracket, squared it, and subtracted it off. Okay? So once you've practiced a few of these, you'll get the hang of it. It's quite straightforward once you get into the routine of it. So at this point here, we think, right, I'm going to deal with this minus 2 and minus 9 now, and I'm just going to move it across to the right hand side by adding it on. Okay? So if I add that on, we're going to be left with x plus 3 squared on the left hand side, and that's going to be equal to 2 add 9, which is 11. Okay. Now on the left hand side, we have a bracket that's squared at the moment, and we need to try and cancel that out. We need to get rid of it. So the opposite of squaring something is square rooting it. So we're going to take the square root of the left and right hand side. Okay. So taking the square root of the left hand side, we're left with x plus 3, and that's going to be equal to the square root of 11. Okay. Now the key thing to remember here, when we square root something, it's always the plus or minus square root of the answer or the number. So in this case, plus or minus the square root of 11. Okay, you've got to remember that the square root of any number, you can always have a positive answer or a negative answer. Two negative numbers times together give you a positive answer. Okay, so that's the reason why. So always remember plus or minus the square root of 11, or plus or minus the square root of whatever answer. So to finish off then now, we're going to do the inverse on the left hand side. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So on the left hand side we have an x, and that's going to be equal to minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 11. Okay, so what you do now, you put this into your calculator. So you, in one case you would put x equals, or sorry, just minus 3 plus the square root of 11 and get an answer. And in the other case you do minus 3 minus the square root of 11. Okay, and the two answers that you would therefore come out with, you would have that x is equal to 0.317, or you would have the answers that x is equal to minus 6.317.